I would like to welcome Dr. Abdullah, Dean, Vice Dean, all my colleagues, and I would like to welcome my uncle on my father's side. He is a one-time guest. So let's start with our work today. Today I'm going to talk about translation of death as clad in euphemisms, and actually there are many times. There are many times, many occasions, many places and times where a spade must not be called a spade. Actually, to the extent that a spade could be called anything but a spade. There's a propensity that we need to change our speech to suit our situation and to be able. It is very important to touch upon today what we call death. Death actually is a taboo subject smothered in prudery and decency for a long time, and there has been relentless pursuits or hot pursuits for finding alternative milder substitutes and euphemisms for talking about death. Now, death is a taboo subject in which psychological, social, and even religious introductions coexist. And it is really a highly stressful experience if you are tasked with telling someone about the death of another person. Today we are going to start with definitions, and before we embark on talking about definitions, let's trace back the origin or the etymology of euphemism. It dates back to euphemos, from a Greek, which means sounding good. Okay, so first we start with the definition. What is a euphemism? Now, the definition reads that it's a universal linguistic phenomenon by means of which a mild, polite, and less blunt expression replaces an offensive equivalent. So there are many ways in which you can express the same thought. Some of them are milder than others, and especially when we are talking about taboos, we are looking for the mild or the polite equivalent. Now, why do we have recourse to using euphemisms? Why do we use euphemisms? Why are we felt to be obliged sometimes to use euphemisms? Actually, there are three reasons. The first one is to avoid upfront language. We have a tendency or inclination, it's in mankind, it's mankind's gravest problem all the time, to find a suitable way to communicate the message of death to people in question. So number one, we try to avoid upfront language, which is offensive language, very or too honest language. Two, we try to shield against what is embarrassing, what is disliked, and what is feared. And we call these taboos in language. And we try to disguise an unpleasant truth, veil an offense, and palliate, alleviate indecency. Now, there is a proverb that says, every polite tongue has its own rules. So let's see what we have after this. Now, what areas does euphemism address? What areas are meant by that? Actually, it refers to the topics that are too intimate and vulnerable to be discussed in public discourse without linguistic safeguards. To the extent that, let's say that language without euphemisms is a defective instrument of communication among people. What motivation lies behind the juggernaut of using euphemisms? It's politeness. Actually, politeness has always been the main drive and prompter for using euphemism. I would like to save my face. I would like to avoid losing my face, so I have recourse. I resort to using euphemisms. Now, the ex-euphemism is a term that has been categorized into 3 subcategories. Number 1 is ortho-euphemism, which is the direct speech, direct talking, very candid, very honest, straightforward talking. B is euphemism, our main focus today. Sometimes they call it sweet talking. And the last one is dysphemism, which is talking offensively or rudely. Okay, now, now someone might ask, is this euphemism used at all, since it is impolite? Can it be used? Does it have any area of use in language? Actually, yes. When? Okay. Okay. It is used, this euphemism is used when scathingly criticizing someone, when we humiliate someone, when we degrade someone, when we try to offend someone. And okay, now look at this simple table. We have ortho-euphemism, euphemism, and dysphemism. For example, die is the straight word, and we have wide range of options to discuss later today. And for this euphemism, we say we have croak. And it is impolite to say that someone croaked, especially if you are going to break the news to family about their loved one. It has the same connotative echoes and values as in Arabic we say fadris. You wouldn't say that, right? So you try to be very polite in communicating this message. Now we go to medical term, feces. Then we have the euphemism for it, poo, and we have this euphemism. So the same thing, we have it in Arabic. We say buraz, tahil buraz, right? So we have also levels and layers of language use. Now, does Arabic use euphemisms? Actually, yes. And we have an interesting story from Al-Kamil fi al-Tarikh by Ibn al-Athir. I looked for that story and just got the excerpt and tried to translate it for you in English so that it could be understood by all. It was reported to one of Kisra's leaders that the king had been making love with his wife. Thereupon, the leader abandoned his wife in bed. The wife complained to the king about her husband's behavior. The king called her husband and said, "It has been brought to my attention that you have a fresh fountain of water." You see the expression in reference to the leader's wife. "And you don't approach it to drink from it," that is to have intercourse with her. "What had made you stay away from it?" The man tactfully, rhetorically, and with eloquence replied, "O king, I was told that a lion," in reference to the king himself, "frequent that fountain. So I was scared that I made up my mind to keep still of it." The king was blushed by his reply and ordered that a reward be given to him. So this is an example, living example from, this is a living example from Arabic, and we have many examples from the Holy Quran. Okay, it doesn't mean to touch. The same thing. So euphemism is used a lot in literature. Now let's see another example, interesting example from English, and we try to see how it is difficult to communicate the message of death. In Arabic, for example, we say "Ba'd amr tawil" when you want to refer or you want to allude to someone's death. So let's watch this very short clip.
the last Weston left, so I plan to own it forever.
Forever?
Forever and ever.
It's a very long time. A very long time.
I'm so sorry.
Fran, may I ask?
Go ahead, honey. Ask me anything you want.
Well, what happens to the place if if forever isn't quite forever?
I don't understand, dear. All I know is that I can't sell the place.
Oh, no, I don't mean selling it. I mean, you would keep it forever, but what happens once you're no longer in the position of physically controlling the property?
How could that be?
Well, if you...
To take a long vacation.
Yes, take a long vacation. Thank you. You're welcome. And when you're on that long vacation, the property is just left sitting there. What happens then?
Oh, I don't enjoy vacations. I toured the California Gold Country 10 years ago. It was hot and the bus smelled.
Okay. I mean a longer vacation than a trip to California.
To a different place. What kind of place?
A place out there.
Way out there, Fran. Europe?
I mean the ultimate long vacation.
Yeah, Fritzy, eventually we're all gonna take the same long vacation.
And with that being the case, you might want to sell the property now and enjoy the money.
I'm very sorry, but I can never sell the place.
Oh, well, thanks for your time, Fran.
Yeah, thanks, Fran. Bye now.
Okay, thank you very much for watching. Would you like to see it again, or it is enough? Okay, it's fine. So as you can see, they got very embarrassed to communicate the message of trying to convey the message of death to her. In Arabic we just say بعد عمر طويل. What would happen بعد عمر طويل, right? And we never mention the concept of death at all. Now they tried to allude to her the concept of the other country or the other vacation, or actually out of the belief in the hereafter, some would use to pass into the other country, which is in Arabic would say alam barzakh, for example, or to move to the undiscovered country. The same thing, it is used in English as well to convey the same message. Okay, or to cross to the other side. Here it means dar baqa ila dar, dar fa dar baqa. Okay, so let's continue and see what we have here. Yes. Now, we started by talking about how should a doctor break the news to a family that their loved one died during the night. We have some options. He croaked, for example, and we dismissed this option from the beginning. He turned up his toes, or he is 6 deep under. So we have 3 different options, and I don't know if you are going to choose any of these options. He turned up his toes is a flippant, it's a very vulgar expression, the same as we say in Arabic, rafa al-arba'. And 6 deep under, out of the belief of the fact that the grave should be 6 feet underground when they dig it for a dead person. Well, none of the above is used. Instead, either of the following is a better choice to break the news. Passed away, passed on, gone to a better place, departed, gone to meet the Maker, sometimes face the Maker, or stand before the Maker, crossed to the other side, called home, got his or her final reward, expired, or lost vital signs. The last 2 ones are used more common than the previous ones. Now in Arabic, they would say, بَذَلْنَا مَا بِوُسْعِنَا لَكِنْ. The pause at this time would be enough and sufficient to convey the rest of the message. Or فَقَدْ عَلَمَتْ حَيَوِيًّا. It means he is not breathing, his heart is not beating, etc. Now, or you can use the ultimate euphemism. What is an ultimate euphemism? It's just silence. If you go out of the operating room and you just nod down your head, it means you don't have good news. Actually, ultimate euphemism used to be used a lot during the Victorian age, during which Queen Victoria reigned England from 1837 until 1901. Also, in China, until now, they just express this idea by just clenching their hands and throwing their head slight back. Now, have a look please at this actual obituary. You see born in, born. You see the word used, past. They didn't use die. They tried to use euphemism in the obituary. Even the word obituary itself is a euphemism for death notice. So euphemism is used in abundance in topics related to death. All right. Actually, I like this obituary because it's opulent with expressions of euphemisms. For example, the world doesn't have Angus to kick around anymore. لم يعد بيننا. Gone. Now they are relating the news through his tongue, as if he is breaking the news about himself. I'm gone. لم أعد هنا. The devil finally called my name. The Grim Reaper. This is used in the equivalent to this in Arabic, هادم اللذات or مفرق الجماعات, or the word used as metonymy for death. The Grim Reaper came for me on Friday. I bought the farm. I bit the dust. Bit the dust, by the way, is an expression, means to die, and it's taken from Homer. Okay, before Christ's time. So I guess I'm off to the promised land. The promised land, I imagine. Here, I imagine have the meaning of I hope. Okay? Another one, I'm not going to spend much time just on in the first line, he escaped this mortal realm. Dar al-fana, or عالمنا الحالي. He left this earthly world. And that's it. I just wanted to refer to this one. And the last one, it's too small, I think. They use passed away. They use passed away. Okay? And even if you look here, memorial service will be held. It's not mentioned that as-salah al-mayyit or something like this. Just as-salah ala al-raha al-nafsiyya li jasad fulan tahira aw ma shaba. Okay? Now, a target language counterpart or equivalent should first be sought. So our major concern is to look for an exact equivalent if possible. If not found, we should stop blindly seeking an equivalent, because it would be futile, of the form at the expense of meaning. So our main concern is just to convey the meaning of the intended message. Following are lists of euphemisms for death with their equivalents in Arabic on the facing column. Each list bases itself on a different area of life. Now the first category is based on literature. They are poetic, metaphorical, and sentimental. Okay. Now, translating euphemisms requires an encyclopedic knowledge of the target language culture. An example now is, in English we say, called to God, which is, in Arabic, انصرف لجوار ربه اصطفاه الله لجواره أو استعز الله بفلان أو استأثر به. Another one is launched into eternity. انتقل لدار القرار انقطع لدار البقاء نقله الله لدار كرامته. Now we have some personification of death. The spoiler, the Grim Reaper, as we came across it, and the Grim Monster. All of them can translate into Arabic as هادم اللذات, مفرق الجماعات, or قشعة. It's used to refer to death or to war. Now, let's have a look at this joke. It's also from Arabic literature. A group of neighbors were reluctant as to how they would break the news of her husband's demise. Demise is used also as a euphemism for death. to his wife. At last, one man volunteered to do the task. He went to her and asked her if she loved her husband. She replied, yes, of course I do. He continued, what if he married a second time? She immediately said, then I would ask God to bring him home in a box. Breathing a sigh of relief, the man ordered the neighbors outside, now get him in. It's close to Arabic, we say, inshallah, bijini Muhammad. He's not walking on his 2 feet. Now, yes, next, expressions from professions, occupations, and trade. They have their origins in professions and occupations. Answered the last muster, heard the final call, or received the final call. All these are taken from military service. Means labba nida'a rabbi. Or fed the fishes. Fishes means qada gharqan. Died in harness qada wa ala ra'si amalihi, while he's at work. Closed up his account with the world. Stawfa ukula. طويت صحيفته سوف ظمأ حياته. ظمأ is the time from birth until death. It's called ظمأ in Arabic. Now we have another category taken from sports and entertainment. Strange. Okay, something is missing here. Okay, euphemisms indicating hanging, electrocution, and lynching. Why is it not appearing?
Maybe it is written in a different color.
But it appeared just now.
Are you pressing the right key? Right.
Yes.
Just wait.
Right.
It
Have
comes
to wait.
back. Just wait.
Okay.
It's a bit slow.
Slow.
Maybe it's dead.
Yeah.
Affected by our anyway, most likely. Okay. With euphemisms indicating hanging, electrocution, and lynching, we have go up a tree, or crack the neck, or salivate, especially if you refer to يعدم باستخدام الزئبق تسمم زئبقي, we say salivate. These expressions that I still remember. Okay. Now, problems encountered by translators when dealing with euphemisms are 2 major ones. Number 1, difficulty in recognizing the target language euphemism. And number 2, difficulty in finding the equivalent to the source language text euphemism. For example, sometimes it's very difficult, very hard to pinpoint that this is a euphemism. In Arabic, for example, we say لعق إصبعه. It means he died. So it's not literally to lick his finger. Okay? Now, euphemisms are hard to pinpoint. They have some difficulty because they share with idioms, proverbs, and metaphors the characteristics of having implicit meaning that goes beyond the lexical and syntactic levels. The strategy adopted in dealing with euphemism translation goes as follows. We first seek the equivalent if found. If not, we just try to keep the meaning and we don't stick to the form. For example, here we have an approximation, some example. He has left a vacant chair. We don't say taraka kursiyan, simply because English people tend to sit at tables a lot especially during meals. So chair is something very symbolic for the presence of someone or the absence of him. In Arabic we say ضحى ظله أو خلا مكانه. We don't say use chair at all. So it's an approximation of translation. The cord is broken, is a euphemism in English. In Arabic we say احتبله حمامه, احتبلته حبول الردى أو علقته أوهاق المنية. The last one, the debt we all must pay, can be said حق علينا أو كأس كلنا شارب, or simply the Quranic verse كل نفس ذائقة الموت. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please fire away.
Thank you very much, Brother Eyhab Bader Eddin, for your lively presentation. This presentation reminds me of a friend who never used euphemistic language, even before going to toilet. He was very embarrassing. We used to stay away from him. Anyway, so do you have any questions? First of all, from the ladies' side. It's not very loud. Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Eyhab Bader Eddin. I'm sorry for, it's Mr. Eyhab Bader Eddin, right? If I'm not wrong. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. I have a question, but before I ask my question, may I take this opportunity to introduce my colleagues who are present in the session today. We have here with us our very supportive and very efficient colleague and our coordinator, Ms. Halima Siri. We have with us Ms. Mariam Aslam, Ms. Gada, Ms. Fahim, Ms. Claudia, Ms. Reem, Ms. Samia, Ms. Sahar, Ms. Fahim, Ms. Isam, Ms. Adiba, and we have our new colleagues, Ms. Kenya, Ms. Nasra, and Ms. Arabella, and this is me, Antifana, for giving us this opportunity to attend the seminars. And we hope that attending the seminars will encourage us to do more research work and develop our professional, it will help us in our professional development. Thank you so much. Mr. Eyhab, I would like to ask you, since we don't deal with a vocabulary class separately, we have our skills courses, like we teach grammar, we teach writing, we teach listening and speaking, and also we teach reading, right? So how would you relate the topic that you did the presentation about, euphemism? How do you relate teaching euphemism, in our teaching our language classes? How would you teach euphemism? I would like to ask you that.
Okay. Thank you very much for your question, and all the members and colleagues that you mentioned are most welcome to attend, to have attended our humble seminar. With regard to your question, actually this seminar belongs to the domain of translation, basically. So I don't know what you meant exactly by teaching it. I'm just concerned with translation. But with regard to euphemism, for example, in vocabulary, then there must be what we call synonym or cross-varietal synonyms that must be displayed, and the differences between them should be shown. Hope I've got your point right.
Yes, you have. So you were saying that we can teach it through teaching them the synonyms and antonyms while we teach the vocabulary.
And it's not simple to teach euphemisms across languages, because languages differ in their culture, and they are culture-based and culture-specific. Just to give you an example, there is a proverb in Ukrainian. It says that one speaks of the wolf and it comes running into the house. Now, the English express the same idea, saying that one speaks of the devil and it comes running into the house. In Slavic languages, actually, they have euphemism for talking about the bear. They mostly refer to it as honey eater, more than the bird itself. And in other countries, they just try to avoid using anything related to that. For example, in Australia, some tribes try to avoid even using any word that rhymes with the name of the person who is dead. Just imagine how much they try to keep themselves away from these euphemisms. Yes?
Thank you. That's it. But since our target language, the target language we are dealing with is English, so how can we relate the teaching of euphemism?
Medical students, they might go over it. Medical students.
And not campuses, sorry.
Some
They teach zero courses.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, do we have any questions? What about from outside? Do we have any comments or questions? Yes, Doctor.
Just a comment. Thanks, Abdul Razak, for this informative presentation, though a bit scaring. Death, whenever it's mentioned, people are kind of scared. However,
to the extent that some tables have just disappeared.
Yeah, but the interesting. This is a comment, it's not a question. The most interesting thing is this. Shared, the cross-cultural, shared concept of death in terms of revealing the death of or the demise of a loved one. Here, I've noticed that, it's not noticed, but it is known that, breaking this news is the last thing that you want to do. So people try to avoid even reluctant to do it, unless there is no one to tell. And they, instead of saying, as you mentioned before, that he is in critical, situation in the ER room, so they, kind of breaking the news gradually to prepare the family and the closed one to this, person. To prepare them for the bad news.
Because it's highly emotional charged.
So, first, avoidance of relating or, carrying the news or breaking this news. So people try to avoid it and, to their most. But if somebody has to reveal this bad news, then it is broken. So gradually, tell the person is broken. So they first say that, well, he is sick. He's been taken to the hospital. He has been admitted to the ER room. He is in critical situation. There is, a high chance of that he might die. Then the person is well prepared later on for the bad news. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. So
sometimes also,
yes.
According to our Islamic religion, we fight, the person, that before, breaking the news, like, are you believing, or asking him, are you believing in God or in Allah? So just to, make sure that he is aware of his, beliefs and religion. And also I I came across an expression, but I think also it can be regarded as euphemism, or his clock is ticking. His clock.
It means his number is up.
Yeah. So yes. I think they are referring that he's close to die, or
yes, and we would say also the clock has run down.
Yeah.
The same meaning. And also we have an interesting one. He have the biscuit. It's used to mean he is dead, or to say that something أكل الدهر عليه وشرب. My car is worn out, for example. Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Dr. Michael has a question.
Congratulations on such a sobering topic presented in not so dark colors, very intriguing. I think it's interesting to see how the same cliches and proverbs and sayings can be traced back in various cultures, apparently disconnected from one another. People also, when they use euphemism, try to pin their hopes on euphemism in the hope that they will not hurt someone's feelings, offend, you know. Save face and so on. Yet if we are to paraphrase an important Shakespearean character, we could say that that which we call death by any other name would not sound any sweeter, you know. And euphemisms can fail us. Apart from cultures, within one and the same culture, we can have various contexts. Using euphemism in a certain context could be offensive, you know, rather than putting it bluntly. We can build up a context where, you know, just imagine that silence, you know, that sheer silence. And think of movies, what happens, you know, those are typical responses when the doctor says nothing. And what does the relative do? Hanging onto his clothes, his neck, and said, please tell me it's not true. You know, it's even worse than saying something. And simply because...
Wordlessly conveyed.
Yeah, yeah. Simply because this is a taboo subject, and this is my last thing, it's also an endless source of humor. And you pointed out some things. Not so much as birth giving or getting married, maybe, or getting a new job, you know, that might make you happy. You know, think of a joke like someone comes to Mrs. Thompson's door. She's Mr. Thompson's wife. Mr. Thompson is a police officer. Knock, knock. Who's there? Hello, Mr. Thompson's widow. She says, no way. She says, take a bet. Or in a graveyard, on a cross, the wife says, rest in peace, George, until we meet again. And yeah, there are many ways in which death can be looked upon in a humorous way, you know, alongside euphemisms.
Yeah. Well, Pound 1936 says that the superstition that naming something is to have power over it seems to have received little credence. So that actually euphemism is a basic tool that we need in our life, and as we mentioned at the beginning, without it, language is a defective instrument of communication.
Of course, of course. Also in my language, you sleep the sleep of the just, you walk around the corner, that would be another one, which might sound offensive.
Well, it's, sometimes it's misused even in the same language. An incident happened with me. So one time I was in Kuwait and we went on a visit to visit our neighbor who was in a critical health problem, and we visited him. We were about 10 people, and just before we left, one of my friends just says to him, "Al-baqa'u lillah, kullu man alayha fan." So why were you telling him that? He wasn't close to death. He wasn't at the death's door, and he was just saying, "I'm citing verses from the Quran." Yes, that's it.
Well, from the ladies, do you have any questions? Any more questions, please? Time is very short. Could you please keep it straight and simple?
We don't have any other questions.
Any comments? What about?
No, we don't have any.
All right, thank you. What about from us? Any comments? If you have any comments, keep it straight and simple, please. Anyone?
The most euphemistic term for death is, I think, somebody is no more with us. One.
All right.
And the colloquial term for that is somebody popped up. Generally we say that somebody popped up.
All right, so I think it's over. Thank you very much. I would like to thank our colleagues from Al Summit campus for joining us. It wouldn't have been lively if hadn't you been with us. And I would like to thank you too very much for attending the seminar. Inshallah, next seminar will be after the short vacation, I think. Inshallah. Thank you very much. Congratulations.